On today's show, we are breaking down the Rangers season. How far did they fall from expectations? And what did we think at the beginning of the season? And how different was the end of the season? All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked on to the Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan since 2010, the founder and host for all 4 seasons of this Locked On Rangers podcast. Today is Monday, October 10th, and we are finally heading to the divisional series of playoff baseball. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers, and the best way you can help grow the show is to comment anything below and subscribe on YouTube. Now, on today's show, we're going to take a look back at what the Rangers season was, kind of a general overview of what this season's problems and good things have been. I'll get more into some in-depth player season reviews later on in the week, but I just want to start this off by looking at what I thought at the beginning of the season. Now, we'll start with the record. Obviously, the record is not what was expected. The Rangers finished the season with 68 wins and 94 losses, but their over-under had them. I thought the over-under was a little bit low at the beginning of the season. Turns out it was a little bit high. The Rangers finished under their over-under by BetOnline, and their over-under was 74.5 games to win. They were 6.5 games under that. Not exactly where you want to be, but that was an optimistic projection, assuming that a lot of things went right. But I think some of the things that went wrong were some of the things we thought would go wrong at the beginning of the season. But my preseason picks, let's see. I started off with defining what defines a successful season. And at the beginning of the year, I said anything more than 72 wins is solid. Going worst to first doesn't happen unless, it's 2014 where you had a team that just had like one aberration of a bad year. Like everyone was hurt and there was a talent there and maybe you made some additions or people just got like way better. But it really doesn't happen like that often. So the bar was 72 wins. They fell below it by 4 games. So still, even by my kind of generous, like, all right, this is kind of what we're looking for. Honestly, that would have been a 12-win improvement. The Rangers were an 8-win improvement, which again is still improvement, but not necessarily the level that you would have wanted. Number 2, my other thing that defined a successful season was keeping Corey Seager and Mitch Garver healthy throughout the year. Said if Garver can play 100-plus games, that is huge. My bar for Corey Seager was 130 games, and, well, 1 out of 2. 1 out of 2 ain't bad. Mitch Garver, I did not know at the time, was already hurt before the season, before the trade. The same injury that would end up keeping him from catching after the month of April and would knock him out for the year at the All-Star break, would keep him to 54 games, which is not exactly what you want from your All-Star Silver Slugger catcher who isn't catching and is DHing and only had a 702 OPS on the year. We saw some spurts for him. We saw some moments. He had 10 home runs in those 54 games, only 215 plate appearances. But like when he was hot, we saw Mitch Garver is an absolute monster, but he was not healthy. He had surgery to fix the issue in his elbow, I believe it was. It's been a hot minute since I have thought about Mitch Garver, but we're hoping, the Rangers are hoping, and I'm hoping generally next year that he can be healthy enough to be kind of a 1A, 1B situation with Jonah Heim, who had a much better season than I ever thought he would be. But keeping Corey Seager healthy was huge. Honestly, huge for this Rangers team. I'm worried to think about how badly this team would be doing if Corey Seager had another year where he missed a whole bunch of games. But this was the second most games he's ever played in a season. The career high was 157 his rookie year, where he finished third in MVP voting, won Rookie of the Year, was an All-Star, Silver Slugger. Everything good happened for him. This year he was an All-Star yet again, played 151 games. and I was pretty close to some of my numbers on what I thought he would be in terms of his home runs. Not the rest of the numbers were not great, but keeping him healthy was great. The Rangers showed that he can hold up over a season. A lot of these injuries, like I went through before the season, they were kind of like freak injury things, not like, oh, he has like a recurring knee issue that's going to make him miss like 20 games every year, or he's got, like with Mitch Garver, the worry was the back injury, which, those things can really add up and get worse over time. And it wasn't the back that kept him out this year, but it was the elbow for Garver. So 1 out of 2, and I think Seager, when he's healthy, is a little bit better of a player than Mitch Garver. So if you could pick one of the two, I think you're 33 or 30, however many millions of dollars he made this year, keeping him healthy for a full season, going 150 plus games, setting a new career high in home runs. Granted, the other offensive numbers and the defensive numbers weren't as great as you might have wanted, but still, keeping him healthy is a huge, huge plus on the season. And number 3, I wanted one young-ish hitter and one pitcher to have unexpectedly good seasons. I said one of Willie Calhoun, Nick Solak, Leody Taveras, Andy Ibanez, or Adolis Garcia making a big leap. Or if it's one of Ezekiel Duran, Josh Smith, Dustin Harris smashing at the big league level, why the heck not? Well, we got that. It wasn't any of those guys that were on there, but it was Nathaniel Lowe and Jonah Heim as well, taking big, big steps forward offensively. They are both young-ish. This was Jonah Heim's age 27 season. This was Lowe's age 26 season. Still, I kind of forget how young he is. This is only his second full season as a full-time starter in the big leagues, and he took a just monstrous leap forward. Absolutely monstrous. He hit over 300 for the year. He was the Rangers' best offensive player, the most consistent offensive player. Really, really took that step forward. Finished the year second in home runs on the team with 27, tied with Adolis Garcia, just behind Corey Seager. But he took a huge, huge step forward. Now, pitching-wise, we didn't get that from any starters. I meant starters when I said that. I wanted some starter to find themselves as a number 3 guy in this rotation. I was looking at Dane Dunning. I was looking at Taylor Hearn. I was looking at Spencer Howard. None of those guys did that at all. Colby Allard most definitely did not do that. But, Dane Dunning defined himself as a solid number 4 or 5 starter, which was what he was last year. And while it's not an improvement, it wasn't a regression. So I guess we could give some props for that. But still, that was really not great. I did think that maybe Brock Burke comes into the starting rotation. I asked if Brock Burke or Cole Winn or AJ Lexi were ready to start full time this year. Well, the Cole Winn, definitely not. AJ Lexi, definitely not. But Brock Burke did take a huge step forward as a very, very deadly multi-inning reliever. Finished the year with a 197 ERA in 52 games and 82 1/3 innings, which was the most among Rangers relievers who were not starters at one point. Taylor Hearn finished with exactly 100 innings on the year, but he had a head start of being a starting pitcher for the first couple of months of the season. But yeah, that was a huge, huge place where the Rangers took some steps backward. Is none of those like 3-4 guys in the back end of the rotation taking a step forward and solidifying themselves as a clear number 3 starter, or at least a number 4 starter. Coming up, we're going to get into what my predictions were at the beginning of this season and some big questions that the Rangers either answered or did not answer that I had before the year. But first, this episode is brought to you by SimpliSafe. The numbers don't lie. In the last decade, over 4 million people have chosen SimpliSafe Home Security to protect their home. You don't earn the trust of that many people without doing something right. At SimpliSafe, your safety is the only thing that matters. I know because I use SimpliSafe in my own home. They protect you with cutting-edge technology, powered by 24/7 professional monitoring. Agents who always have your back. And here's why I love it. It's got 24/7 professional monitoring. SimpliSafe's agents, they call you the moment a threat is detected and dispatch police or first responders in an emergency, even if you're not at home and can't be reached. SimpliSafe blankets your home in protection with advanced sensors for every room, window, and door. HD security cameras for inside and outside your home. Smarter ways to detect motion that only alert you when a threat is real, and even hazard sensors that instantly detect fires, floods, and other threats to your home. Our monitoring experts use proprietary advanced response technology to visually confirm when a break-in is real, so you get the highest priority police dispatch. Customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at simplisafe.com/lockedonmlb. Save 20% on your SimpliSafe security system when you sign up For interactive monitoring plan and get your first month free, visit simplysafe.com/lockedonmlb. There's no safe like Simply Safe. Now, my predictions before the season, looking back on these, there was a lot of rose-colored glasses that were influencing these predictions. There was the Rangers just spent over $500 million in a week. There was the, oh wow, I thought the season was going to get locked out, and we were going to miss a large chunk of it, or at least maybe even not have it at that point, right when this season was starting. That lockout ended really quickly, so there's a lot of rose-colored glasses. But I don't blame myself. But I'm probably gonna do the same thing again next year. Maybe not quite as rosy-colored glasses given what happened this year, and I don't think the Rangers are going to spend another $500 million this offseason. But still, it's spring training. Everyone has rose-colored optimism glasses because baseball is back, and the winters are so long and dark without them, despite all those other less fun sports being around. But my prediction for the Rangers' record before the year, 83-79, 5 games out of the final wild card spot. I at least didn't say that they were going to make the wild card spot, and you know what? I was 2 games off of my prediction. If the Rangers finished 83-79, they would have been 7 games out of the final wild card spot as opposed to 5. That was the closest I got with that one. Just my bad. They didn't even have the inverse record of that. I thought they'd just barely get above 500. That would be apparently a leap too big. Maybe that's the record next year, and maybe that's closer to the final wild card spot. But I'm not buying it, because there are a lot of these really good teams this year that I don't think are going to regress that much next year. They might end up even getting better. But my team MVP, I said that was going to be Corey Seager. Hey, you could make a case for that. You could definitely make a case for that this year. Not a totally unreasonable one. I said he regains the Globe Life Field Dinger record from Joey Gallo. Yeah, that happened. That absolutely happened with the crazy amount of home runs he hit. I said the home run leader was going to be Mitch Garver with 42. Yeah, only 32 shy on that one, Bryce. Real close. Then I said Marcus Semien would finish with 41. Again, just a bit off on that one. 15 off of that one. But how was I going to know that Marcus Semien wouldn't hit his first home run until the very, very end of May? I could not have predicted that. Maybe I could have if I was smarter and more intuitive, but I wasn't. WAR leader, I said that Marcus Semien was going to have an 8.5 WAR season. Again, real optimistic there, Bryce. I said Seager was going to finish with 5.5 and Garver with 5.1. Yeah, Garver was not at 5.1. Not even close. He was, let's see, where we go. 0.4. 0.4 WAR season. So just about 4.7 WAR off. Just more than 10 times what he actually did. Good going there on that one, Bryce. Marcus Semien finished with 5.8 WAR. So again, 5.7, excuse me. Trying to give him a little closer. Seager with 4.1. Yeah, I did not see Martin Perez finishing second on the team in WAR with 5.0, according to Baseball Reference. But, this is a weird year, and weird things definitely happened. Seager, I predicted with a 312, 387, 540 slash side, and 927 OPS. Again, like 150 points off there, no big deal. 155, excuse me. I did say 145 games, so hey, he played more games than I thought he would. 32 home runs. I was so close. He ended with 33. So freaking close. But, I feel like that one I feel pretty good about. Semien, I said with a 901 OPS. Yeah, he finished with a 733 OPS. Not quite there. And Garver with a 985 OPS and 42 homers in 122 games. Yeah, just way off on all of those. Gosh, these breakout players are even worse. Good Lord, what was I on? Breakout hitter pick. Willie Calhoun, 850 plus OPS, 28 home runs. Yeah, not even freaking close, my dude. Not even close. Breakout pitching pick. Spencer Howard. No. Bad. Dumb. Why did I think that? Why did I have so much optimism? To be fair, Spencer Howard did look really good in spring training. that didn't end up carrying out at all. Now, for the prospects I thought were going to make their debut, Cole Winn, nope. Josh Smith, yes. Chase Lee, could have at the end of the season, but didn't. Davis Wenzel, nope. Blaine Krim, nope. Cole Reagans, nailed that one. Josh Young, nailed that one. Jack Leiter, emphatically no. So, about 50% on that. I feel decent about it. Again, I give myself full credit for picking Cole Winn. That was an obvious slam dunk pick, and him forgetting how to throw strikes for the entire year. Same with Jack Leiter. That is not something that I could have predicted or would have looked smart predicting. Even in hindsight, I feel like those are both kind of aberrations. Wenzel didn't quite do as well as I thought in AAA. The Rangers' end of bench situation ended up being worked out, and guys like Ezekiel Duran and Bubba Thompson breaking out more than I thought this year, and Josh Smith ended up working out a little bit better than I thought they would. And Charlie Culberson still did his Charlie Culberson thing and stayed on the roster throughout the end of the year, and that would have been a spot where we could have seen a little bit of Davis Wenzel, but we didn't. So too bad, so sad. Still, I feel pretty decent about that. Now, coming up, we're going to look at the 5 biggest questions that I had before the season, how well the Rangers did on answering them, and if they even did answer some of these, or just made more questions. But first, this word from our sponsors. Now, my first big question was, again, regarding the health of Corey Seager and Mitch Garver, because I think those were the 2 most important things going into the season. We could not have predicted what Jonah Heim did for the first half and stepping up, being the everyday catcher with the severe injuries limiting Mitch Garver. But the Rangers kept Corey Seager healthy for a whole year. And again, that is a very, very valuable thing. They kept all of their main stars fairly healthy. I mean, Adolis Garcia played 156 games. Marcus Semien literally only took the 1 game off. I predicted he would play 162. He played 161. They gave him the 1 day, and everything kind of started resetting from there. And I believe it was the Boston series back in May. And Nathaniel Lowe played 157 games this year. So, for the most part, fairly healthy. Even, Jonah Heim played 127 games as well, which, again, huge workload. Ended up with 450 plate appearances. The back half didn't go as well. We all know this, but still overall a pretty solid body of work from him, given what was expected from last year. Number 2, how good is John Gray? Is he the next Mike Minor, Lance Lynn, or Kyle Gibson? He was the 28th highest paid pitcher in Major League Baseball for this season. And you know what? He was about as expected, about as advertised, only 127 and a third innings because of those early trips to the IL and then the 6 weeks that really hurt the Rangers down the stretch with that oblique injury. But the WAR was a lot lower than I thought it would be. He had some really great months in June and July with, I believe, a sub 250 ERA in both of those months. Ends the year with 127 innings, 24 starts, 3.96 ERA, 134 strikeouts. Best strikeout pitcher that the Rangers had as a starter. Was fairly consistent when he was healthy. That slider, the sweeping action to it, the second version of the slider, if you will, the more horizontal breaking really helped him rack up those strikeouts and be a little bit more effective. He had a few blow-up starts, did give up more home runs than I thought he would, especially towards the end of the season, but overall solid. And I think that was my main concern, was him being able to stay healthy, because he's had some health issues before. He has not pitched a huge workload of innings throughout his career. He's never eclipsed the 180 innings mark, and I think that anyone expecting him to do that this year was probably trying to bite off a little bit more than they could chew. Last year he had 149 innings with the Rockies. In 2019, the full season before that, he had 150. 172 and a third was his career high back in 2018, but he did have his third sub 3 or sub 4 ERA season. He had one of those back in 2019 and 2017 as well. He was not able to make his first All-Star appearance, but the ERA plus was right around average, 99 on the dot. 9.5 strikeouts per nine, just a little bit higher than his career average. A little bit fewer walks per nine, and somehow a higher home runs per nine than his career average, even though before this year his home park was Coors frickin' Field. Just 1.1 was his career, and 1.2 is what he did this year in terms of dingers per nine. But still, really solid season, about what the Rangers, I think, were expecting from him. If not for that oblique injury towards the back half of the season, I struggle to think of like what this could have been. The WAR was, again, much lower than I think we all predicted it would be. At 1.4 Baseball Reference WAR, he was the ninth highest WAR in the regular season, behind Brock Burke and Matt Moore. I don't think any of us would have predicted that, of him being the fourth most valuable Rangers pitcher this season. But still, solid work from him, and I think this is about what the Rangers can expect. If they can get him to the 150 inning mark, which I think is what he would have been at if he didn't miss those 6 weeks or however long it was with the oblique injury, I think that would have been really nice. Question number 3, is Willie Calhoun going to figure it out? No, he's not. Not with the Rangers, not with San Francisco, and not with whatever team he's with now. I don't know if it's still San Francisco, but yeah, that was a huge bummer and really upsetting early on in the season. Ended his year with 18 games and a 556 OPS, but to be fair, the other Calhoun didn't really figure it out either. I mean, he had that month of May where I think Willie Calhoun would have had an equally impressive month of May if he was able to stick around, but he didn't. And that's just the way the cookie crumbled, and it crumbled in a very, very not good way. Number 4, who will establish themselves as a part of the rotation moving forward? / is Spencer Howard a starter? Well, no. Spencer Howard is not a starter. I'm pretty darn sure the Rangers have figured that out. They did give him some starting opportunities when he was coming back from his late season injury in AAA to end his season. But again, I'm pretty sure it's time to just throw him in the bullpen. I probably thought that in the midway through the season. Then he came back, had some solid starts, then some blow-up starts, and then got hurt again. But this was just overall not a great season for him. And it's looking like the Kyle Gibson trade was just an absolute poo-poo for everybody involved. Gibson did pitch over 160 innings this year for the Phillies, but had an ERA over 5. I don't think the Rangers are going to look at bringing him back. But just not a great year for that guy, for Spencer Howard, who ends the year with a 7.41 ERA in 10 games. 8 of those were starts, 37 innings, gave up 2.9 homers per 9 and 3.6 walks per 9, which wasn't as bad of the walks per 9 as I thought, but nearly 12 hits per 9, just base runners galore, and not getting those strikeouts like you would think a guy with his really nice repertoire of stuff. Taylor Hearn did not establish himself as a starter either. Pretty much decided, all right, he is going to be a multi-inning reliever. Granted, he did thrive in that role, and that was nice, but not a starter. Dane Dunning, number 5 starter, still a starter, not an elite one. Brock Burke, again, a surprisingly solid season for him out of absolutely nowhere, and I think that is definitely encouraging. I think the Rangers might think about starting him next year. The back half of the season wasn't nearly as good for him as the first half, and the last month it felt like things kind of got away from him just a little bit, but still ends the season with a 2.1 Baseball Reference WAR, sub 2 ERA, a lot of strikeouts per 9. The last 14 days of the season he only pitched in 3 games. Allowed a 12.26 OPS in those 3 outings. 3 home runs in those last few outings. Not exactly the level of success that he had early on. So that's what makes me think maybe just let him stay as that really, really nasty, one of the better left-handed relievers in the game. The second half in general wasn't quite as stellar for him. First half, before the All-Star break, pitched in 30 games, 47 innings, 49 strikeouts, and a 1.15 ERA. In the second half, he pitched in 22 games, 35 and a third innings, and a 3.06 ERA. So nothing crazy, nothing too crazy, but just not quite the same level of insane dominance that we saw in that first half, which was just really, really fun. even with the less good second half and a really not great last month of the season, still really huge strides for Brock Burke and a completely unexpected season that I got to give huge props to. Number 5 was last year a fluke for Adolis Garcia. No, no, it wasn't. And it's nice to figure that out. Last year, he set the Rangers rookie record with 31 home runs, a 741 OPS, and completely fell off a cliff in the second half. He had higher highs and lower lows last year, but the consistency this year was something that stood out to me that I don't think I necessarily expected from him. I thought, okay, well, he was found money last year, didn't even make the opening roster out of spring training, but ended up being an all-star and having a fantastic season. And with how he fell off in the back half of last year, I thought, okay, well, that was fun. That was a fun story. I don't know if he was going to continue to be a starter, but it was definitely fun while it lasted. And this year, he had an even better second half than he did at first half. In the first half, he had 86 games under his belt and 15 home runs with a 720 OPS. In the second half, he had 70 games, 12 home runs, and an 802 OPS. That's 82? Yes, 82 points higher of an OPS in that second half. The on base was 323 in the second half. And some of the statistical measures that I wanted for him, just nice little round numbers that I wanted him to get to, I said, okay, well, I want the OPS to be 750 plus. Check. 756 on the year. All right, well, I want the on base to be 300 or better. Exactly 300, right on the dot. And batting average, just a little bit better, 250, let's say. I hit 250 right on the dot with 27 home runs this year, a lot more triples with 5 of those this year, in 7 more games on the whole. Just a really, really solid improvement. The strikeout rate and the amount of strikeouts went down. He walked 40 times this year as opposed to 32 last year, and was a lot more effective on the base pass this year. He had 16 steals last year, and he had 25 this year with only 1 more caught stealing in those extra amount of attempts. So really, really good season. Proved to be a solid contributor this year in right field. A 3.6 baseball reference WAR as opposed to 3.8 last year. But again, really, really solid year. And again, he's just completely found money. A huge, huge positive is that the Rangers have their right fielder for now, for the future, for several years to come. And he is still making right around that league minimum. I think next year, maybe it's the year after, that he'll be finally eligible for arbitration. But the Rangers not having to go out and get another outfielder, not having to go and try and find one of the very few good outfielders that are out there on the market outside of Aaron Judge. They're not getting Aaron Judge. It's not happening. Don't get your hopes up like that. They spent $500 million last year. They're not going to do it on one player on a position of less need than they are on the starters. But still, Adolis Garcia breaking through and continuing his breakthrough season from last year, picking up and getting better in those key areas. I think that is a huge, huge credit to Donnie Ecker and Tim Hires for helping those guys break out, for helping Nathaniel Lowe break out, for Jonah Heim's breakout year as well. And I did say, maybe Leody Taveras figures it out and mashes in the big leagues for a while. Well, he did. He did for the first half. 30 games in that first half. He had a 920 OPS. Remember, he was hitting 341, just absolutely annihilating every single pitcher that he was finding. His little bloopers were finding holes. He had 3 home runs in those first 30 games. And yeah, the back half really was not exactly what you wanted to see. But still, we know the insane value he can bring defensively. He's got one of the strongest arms in baseball. His average throws on that leaderboard, Baseball Savant has a leaderboard for the biggest arms. His average throw power, throw velocity, whatever, was higher than Adolis Garcia's, which was really surprising. Both those guys were in the top 10 of Major League Baseball. In 69 games in the second half, he had a 585 OPS. But in the last 7 games of the season, he really, really stepped it up, had a 794 OPS in those games, slugged 500, including that big game-winning home run and a double as well. And just some really nice way to finish out the season when the second half wasn't nearly what he wanted it to be. But I'm pretty sure the Rangers have their center fielder of the future, or at least the immediate future until Evan Carter makes his big league debut. That is settled. Pretty much every offensive position is settled for at least next year. And that is not at all what I thought would happen this year. Last year, there were maybe two positions. You thought, okay, Adolis Garcia, he's going to be a starter next year. They're going to give Lowe a chance. He was fine last year, 771 OPS, which led the team by quite a bit last year. Thought, okay, well, he's going to start. And, well, let's see, they need to upgrade literally everything else. And, well, they did that. You spend that much money, and granted, not all of those signings work, but the biggest money signings did work out. John Gray had a solid season, not spectacular. Seager, again, even though he didn't quite live up to the whole $30 million, he did set some career highs and stayed healthy. Still his first year in the new place. And Marcus Semien, after that horrendous start, really completely lived up to that billing in the final 4 months of the season and was a really, really solid player. And maybe you can go get Martin Perez and continue the great season that he had. He wasn't the young pitcher breakout, but he was an older pitcher breakout. He still, I believe, was 31 this year. So Rangers need to go ahead and get him back and then start building their rotation out for next year, because none of these young guys really made that big of a leap. There are some young guns in the upper minors that I think could push whatever, number 3-ish, 2 or 3 starter that the Rangers sign this offseason. But you got to go in with a solid rotation. If some injuries happen, then some of these young guns who might be breaking out next year or taking that next step can come in and fill those spots. But we knew the rotation was kind of flimsy before the year. It ended up being that the offense got better. So even though the win-loss total, we know the 1-run losses just really kind of skewed this in the first half, and towards the back half, it kind of felt like they were about what their record said they were. But still, overall, there are definitely some positives. There are definitely some areas for a lot of improvement, but still, overall, I think this was a lot better than last year and a whole lot more watchable baseball. And at the end of the day, that's really what it's all about for those of us diehards watching all 162. If they're not going to be great, at least be interesting. And this Texas Rangers team in 2022 was most definitely interesting. That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Rangers. For your next listen, go check out Locked On MLB. You can listen to Paul Francis Sullivan, please call him Sully, talk about this weekend's wild card series where I got 3 out of my 4 picks of the matchups right. You can see some Padres-Dodgers. We're going to see some Mariners-Astros. It's going to be some really, really great baseball from now until the end of the postseason. Go check it out. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. Thank you all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.